Today's tip of the week is something that we've talked about for those of you all who were in the room with us. We talked about it in not in a fair amount of detail, but for those who are joining us online, I want to give you an idea of what it's about. So it's something I call hold for the gold, hold for the gold. And this is really all about holding real estate for the long term. One of our coaches taught us many years ago when we first started investing that the people who get rich, the people who build wealth, are the ones that can afford to hold on to that real estate in between market cycles, right? In between market cycles. Because if you're buying at the top of the market cycle and then you're selling at the bottom, yes, you're going to have a major problem. But even if you buy at the top and you're able to hold on until we get to the top again, right, you're going to show up as a winner. You're going to show up with that balance sheet being beefed up by the value of that property. So I was just looking at some of the assets that we hold today and some of the ones that we first bought, and many of those we still have today. We paid about $4 million for those assets many of the ones that we still have today. When we first bought them. Today, they're worth about $15 million. They've gone up 3.5 times just in the last 18.5 years, right? How? Just by holding on to them, just by buying in the right areas. So one of the things that we've done is, because I'm a licensed realtor and broker, I've downloaded all of the data in the MLS, and because my husband is an engineer, we've created something that we call a heat map to watch to see where the values have built over time and to be able to decide where to invest next as we're looking for new opportunities. So we're watching where the values are doubling, doubling, and doubling. So you guys may have heard of Wayne Gretzky, yes? Yeah, the great one. What sports does he play? Hockey. What's one of his favorite, or what's one of his most quoted sayings? I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going to be, and I get there really, really fast. As real estate investors, that saying is equally as true for us, because we need to know and we need to be skating where that puck is going to be, where those values are doubling and doubling in value. Because if we're able to pick those locations based on having that tribal knowledge, based on having all of that information and knowing where that puck is going based on the trajectory that it has been over the prior years, is that going to be something that if you hold on to those properties is going to make you very wealthy? And the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes. And I'll tell you that for myself, for my husband, as we've been investing together, we personally experienced that as we have held on to many of those properties. And I'll tell you, when we first started investing in 2003, gosh, what was going on in the Central Texas market? Does anybody remember? It was right after the dot-com boom and bust. And it was around the time that Dell, instead of hiring 100 people a day, Dell was firing 100 people a day. So what kind of economy did that create in the areas of Pflugerville, of Round Rock, of Georgetown, of Hutto? Foreclosures, short sales. So when I first started investing, I started investing in a very tough market, right? In a very tough market. And then I saw the market go up after the credit boom, and then I saw the market go down after the credit bust. We invested through all of that. And then the market went flat and sideways for a long time. So from roughly 2008 to about 2012, this market in Central Texas and throughout Texas went sideways, went flat for a long time. It wasn't until over the last 5 to 7 years, right? In 2012 is when we saw the market in Central Texas turn around. 2012, 2013 is where we saw some of the other markets turn around. But it was then when we finally start to see some of those values go up. And what's going to be happening with those values going forward, as we have very little or almost no inventory? We're going to continue to watch those go up as well. The tip here, the secret here is to, in areas where you have values that are very high, it goes against how we were socialized. It goes against how we were taught. It goes against many of the books that we have read. But what you find is here in Austin, there's not a lot of cash flow. In fact, I often refer to Austin plus cash flow as an oxymoron. And that is also very similar to many parts of Houston, of Dallas, and even now starting to become parts of San Antonio as well. So what do you need to do to get cash flow? You need to use other strategies. So as we go through the presentation tonight, we're going to share with you many other strategies to be able to create cash flow in your business. But we also want to make sure that we talk about the ways to generate wealth. Because at the end of the day, when you look at your balance sheet and you said, how well did I do in life, right? How secure am I? Am I ready to retire if I wanted to retire, right? Can I leave a legacy for the people that I love? The answer is going to be based on your balance sheet, and your balance sheet is going to be based on how many properties that you bought and held. And that's why I call this tip of the week, hold for the gold. Don't get confused by a property doesn't cash flow. In fact, I've got a friend of mine who bought a property for very little money, $100,000, okay? And now that property is worth well over $1 million. And every time it's tax season, what are they doing? They're writing a check for about $22,000. Are they happy about that? No. But because the value's gone up over $900,000 over the time that they've owned it, they're crying, right? But they're crying all the way to the bank, right? And guess what? I wanted to take a poll tonight, if it's okay with you, a live audience poll. So we've got some people here in our live audience. In fact, I'll go and see if we can get the camera going around the room. Will you raise your hand if you feel sorry for the person? We'll wave at the people who are saying hello to you. Hey guys, so hey, okay, we got 2 people waving. Thank you for that. But one of the things that I always like to say is that typically, no one feels sorry for the person who's getting rich, right? Even if they don't have cash flow, as long as obviously they can afford not to have cash flow by using other strategies. So there are so many strategies you can have as a real estate investor. Don't just focus on one being creating that cash flow. Look for what's happening in your specific market. And one of the things that I see a lot of people do is they'll say, and this quote, oh my gosh, it drives me bananas, but people will say, it's too expensive here. So what am I going to go do? It's too expensive here, so I'm going to go to some really crappy place that no one wants to live, as evidenced by these really low values of houses, to invest in real estate. What? Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense to you? The answer is no, yet what do you find in those little crappy places that no one wants to live? That's where the cash flow is, right? So sometimes cash flow doesn't give you the result that you ultimately want at the end of the day in terms of buying in areas that are doubling and doubling and doubling in value. And I know for me personally, that has been the secret to building the wealth that we've built over these almost 2 decades of investing in real estate.